So how do we know if our leadership team's too big, particularly our executive leadership team? Well, to be honest, for an executive leadership team to really function well and function effectively, you're going to need to have a number that's around about 4 to 6 ideally, but no more than 8. If it gets above that, I've seen some examples of leadership teams that are up to 10, 12, even up to 14 or 15 people. The problem with this is that team is not going to be effective at being able to make decisions or be able to make decisions quickly. When that happens and when that starts to play out, what invariably ends up happening is we start to defer to being a couple of key people that end up making all the decisions. It'll start deferring to the CEO or the CEO and the COO or the CEO and the CFO, and a lot of those decisions will get made outside of the meetings. So what we want to do is then sort of try to help this team function more effectively. So there's a couple of ways we can do it. One is to actually create a distinction between what might be a smaller executive decision-making team that are really honed in on particular decisions, particular risk settings, and particular parameters. So that's a small group. And then potentially a broader leadership team that has a slightly different purpose. It's natural that we want to have a broader group of leaders that are contributing in terms of strategy, ideation, understanding our culture, how do we deal with risks, getting them to contribute to how we make things happen, how do we line and engage all of our people to deliver on the strategy. Naturally, there's a broader team that you want to involve in that, but that's separate from decision making. So that's one alternative. If we're not in a position or not willing to reduce the size of the executive or the size of the senior leadership team at this point, then what you're going to need to do is become really, really disciplined at your decision-making practices. That means you're going to have some really good guidelines, some really good rules and routines around how you're going to do it. At what scenarios do we want a majority on decisions? What are the scenarios where we do actually need a consensus, knowing that is going to be really difficult if we've got a large group? What are the scenarios where we're happy to actually defer to a subject matter expert, or what are the scenarios we're happy to actually for it to be a captain's call? You're going to need to really invest some time in getting those decision-making practices really down pat, because if not, under pressure in the day-to-day, what will happen if it becomes difficult is we'll again defer to having a certain key person or key people make all the decisions. So again, trying to look at the size to get that size down, creating a distinction between an executive decision-making group and a large consultative leadership team, or really invest the time in our decision-making practices. Wish you all the best.